Before a producer hits record or before a journalist picks up a pen, someone like you notices something and wants to understand it. Every day, we invite you to keep asking questions like why and who and how. Because NPR begins with questions, not conclusions. And your right to curiosity is a right worth protecting.
Welcome in San Diego, it's Jade Hindman. On today's show, we start our series of interviews with candidates running for the 48th Congressional District. First up, Brandon Riker. This is KPBS Midday Edition, connecting our communities through conversation. So voters have a little less than a week to cast their ballots for the June primary. The race for California's 48th Congressional District is one to watch. It's one of the 5 red seats Democrats are hoping to flip blue with the passage of Prop 50. This week on Midday Edition, we're sitting down with some of the leading Democratic candidates. I'm here with one of them now, Brandon Riker. He's an economist and businessman. Brandon, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Jade.
Welcome to the show, I should say.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you were able to make it in. Listen, California's 48th District, it was one of 5 Republican-held seats targeted by Prop 50, which voters passed. Why are you the right candidate to flip this seat from red to blue?
Well, this seat is incredibly unique. It starts up in the Coachella Valley in Indian Wells through Palm Springs, stretches all the way down the 215-15 corridor through Riverside County and then to North and East County, San Diego. This is where I live. This is a campaign we've been building since last April when I was originally running in the California 41st before redistricting. We've done 129 listening tours, 11 town halls talking about the economy. As you mentioned, I'm a trained economist. I would be the only trained economist in Congress. So everything from the cost of living crisis we're facing to homeowners insurance, I'm running on a platform to solve those problems and make sure every Californian is able to stay in their home or get a home.
What do you think people get wrong about the economy then? What value do you think your training brings to Congress?
Well, I think one of the things that both parties have failed is we talk a lot about raising wages and lowering costs, but the truth of the matter is if we're going to raise wages, how do you force private businesses to do that? In my plan, we would exempt FICA tax on the first $50,000. That puts 6.2% back in everyone's paycheck on the first $50K. That's a huge middle-class tax cut. It would be the largest in American history. On the flip side of that, seniors who are on fixed incomes through Social Security, we keep saying Social Security is going insolvent. We got to solve it. Right now, the FICA cap sits at $184,000. If we eliminated that and had wealthier people pay in all the way, we could make Social Security solvent and make sure that seniors can get a larger cost of living adjustment every year. That's a big piece. And when we talk about costs, let's talk about homeowners insurance. We see right now so many people are getting priced out of their homes because they can't afford the insurance anymore. I'm calling for a national plan that would make sure that the insurance companies help pay into the program so it could reduce the subsidies, and at the same time potentially get the polluters to pay in as well, because we're seeing wildfire risk across this district. Go up into Idlewild, people are paying $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 a year for fire insurance.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I want to dig into that more in a bit. But, San Diego is consistently among the most expensive housing markets nationwide, as we just kind of touched on. What would be your approach then to really deal with housing affordability that hasn't already been done?
Yeah, so when you think about this district and we talk about San Diego County, it's really North County San Diego. It's Vista, San Marcos, Escondido, and one city council seat in Oceanside. So part of it is we've got to bring jobs out of urban centers so people don't have to commute as far as we continue to build homes. We talk a lot about permitting reform and making housing more dense, and that works in cities like San Diego or Los Angeles. It gets a little harder when you get on the suburbs, so you already have fairly less dense housing. So what we got to do is put housing near transit to make sure people can get to work, but also bring those small businesses out of the cities and make sure small businesses can thrive. Right now, we're seeing just a push towards larger and larger conglomerates because they're the only ones that can be competitive in this market. We have a tax system right now that rewards larger companies and penalizes small ones. We've got to reverse that. That's how you solve the housing crisis. It's unique. It's not about, we obviously have to build more, but just building more is not going to solve the problem. If you look in places like Banning and Beaumont, we're building tons of housing there, but the commute times are now 3 hours. So gas prices are causing a huge increase in the cost of living. We've got to get smart about it. It's a double-edged sword. You got to bring jobs out and create the infrastructure in order to have more homes.
If Democrats are able to retake control of the House of Representatives, What would be your priorities over the next 2 years while President Trump still occupies the White House?
The first is we got to get the first $50,000 tax-free. That's, as I mentioned, 6.2% back into people's paycheck. Whether you're paying for rent or utilities, it's a way that we can help alleviate some of that cost immediately. The second is making Social Security solvent. That's a problem for both parties. Both parties have seniors in it. Seniors vote, and it's an important block that we should pay attention to. And it's time we actually solve Social Security by making it solvent instead of scaring seniors consistently. And the third is that homeowners insurance. That's a bipartisan issue as well. As much as we're struggling here with wildfires in California, southern states are dealing with it with increased hurricanes, sea level rises. We need to have a national catastrophic homeowners insurance program. That's something we can pass while Donald Trump is still president.
Let's talk about immigration, too, because I want to know how you would address the president's continuing policy of mass deportations and the impact it has on county residents.
Yeah, we obviously have to hold ICE accountable. You can't have warrantless searches going on. You can't have people being masked. You can't have only 47 days of training for ICE agents. This is a bigger problem. What I will say about immigration, and this is something that I wish Democrats talked about more, when you cut off programs like USAID and programs like PEPFAR and across the board, that's going to lead to more immigration in the future. And that's something that Democrats, I don't think, have campaigned enough on, is that Trump is causing an immigration crisis generation from now or a couple of years from now because of what this administration has done. So we need to reinstate those programs as well. But we've got to rein in ICE. And I've called for, separating Customs and Border Patrol into two separate branches. It doesn't make sense to have Customs under the Department of Homeland Security. That should be under the Treasury Department. And then border enforcement should be under the Department of Justice, not under Homeland Security. And that's a way we can start to force that in Congress.
How would you fix what many see as a broken system here?
Oh, the system's incredibly broken. Part of it is we got to get money out of politics. I'm, one of the candidates in this race who's not taking corporate PAC money.
Specifically,
oh, you mean immigration?
Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to immigration, we obviously have to have some border security and have a strong border, know who's coming into this country. And that was what was in the bipartisan bill that Donald Trump nuked when Joe Biden was president. We need to get back to that. On the flip side of that, we need to make sure we have asylum judges. So when people come into this country, they don't have to wait 10 years to find out whether they're going to be able to stay or not. I mean, that's a big piece of this. And then when it comes back to programs like USAID, we should look at our foreign investments to make sure that people don't have to flee the countries that they're coming from. I work with refugees when I serve on the board of Safe Place International. I can tell you most refugees do not want to be refugees. They're refugees either for economic reasons or for persecution. If the United States, if we can actually go in and do good work around the world back investing in programs like USAID, then less people are going to have to flee their homes.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the globe and the global situation here, the U.S. and Israel launched their major military campaign against Iran in late February without congressional approval. If you were elected to Congress, how would you use your vote to influence the president's ability to start and end wars?
This has been a problem for a long time, and it obviously has become incredibly acute under President Trump, not just with Iran, but what he did in Venezuela. And we're seeing this again and again. This is going to be a critical point in American history where the Congress is going to have to step up and start pulling power back from the executive branch to the legislative branch. One of the things I spent a lot of time talking about is after Donald Trump is gone, we have to authoritarian-proof the executive branch so this never happens again. And that includes making D.C. a state, expanding the House of Representatives, expanding the Supreme Court so we can actually get our democracy back in line, passing Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, so we don't see what just happened in the South where seats have just been handed over to the Republicans. This has to stop. It's going to be very hard while Donald Trump is president. I think one thing that every Democrat should ask when they vote for the president in 2028 in the primary is which one of the candidates is going to be willing to cede power back to the legislative branch so we can get three equal co-branches of government again.
Mm. Your campaign is largely self-funded, and you've said that you don't take corporate PAC money. Why is it that that's so important to you?
Well, we're about half self-funded, so I'm matching my donations. So that's kind of where we're at. But what I will tell you with corporate PAC money is we need to know where the money's coming from. This can't be a situation anymore where you're seeing corporations be able to buy politicians and then they get their vote in Washington. I want everyone to know exactly where the money's coming from. I want people to know how I'm campaigning. It's why I've done 129 listening tour sessions, 11 town halls across this district, meeting with voters every step of the way. And campaigns are expensive, but I want to make sure everyone in this district has a chance to speak to me without having to be behind a paywall like so many politicians do, because there's just way too much money in politics.
That being said, KPBS recently reported on the use of campaign website red boxes, which appear to be ad buying instructions to outside groups. And you're not alone here, but how do you ensure corporate PACs aren't using that information on your behalf?
Well, when it comes to red boxing, that's just a common practice. But I will say this, not a single voter has asked me about the red boxing. What they care about is how am I going to get their price of gas down? How am I going to make sure they can stay in their home? And that's what I'm committed to, and that's what I'm campaigning on. I've got opponents in this race whose outside PACs have spent millions of dollars. I don't know how much has been support of me, but what we're out there saying is the same message that I'm kind of with the campaign, which is if you send me to Washington, I'll fight every day to make the first $50,000 tax-free, make sure Social Security is solvent, and finally actually make sure people can stay in their home by getting a national insurance program.
And so how is that different than accepting corporate money?
Well, it's not coming into the campaign. I mean, I've not bought at all. There's been zero corporate PAC money into this race. You can tell. I mean, I've taken, I think, $2,000 total from PACs, one from Able Democrats and one from the Longshoremen's Union. I'm very careful about the money that comes into my race.
And again, I want to reiterate that this reporting on red boxing can be found at kpbs.org for those who may be unfamiliar with what exactly that is. But I want to move on to something else here because you grew up in the Bay Area. As someone who is not from the San Diego area, what makes you the right candidate to represent San Diego voters?
Well, this district is half Riverside County, half San Diego. It's both. My dad's actually a graduate of San Diego State, where we're sitting in the studio today. My grandfather grew up in Lakeside. We had a family ranch since the 1900s in San Diego County. So I know this district. But what's important is that this isn't a San Diego or a Riverside district. This is the California 48th district. I live in this district, one of the few candidates who can say that. And I've been all over. We've done town halls in Escondido and in Vista. I've done town halls in Temecula and in Hemet. I've done town halls in Palm Springs and Idlewild. We campaign everywhere because this district is about bringing people together. And if we're going to win this district and flip the House of Representatives, we have to campaign on the economy. Because the one thing that brings us together throughout this very diverse district is people are struggling. People are commuting 3 hours in their car to get to work. People are struggling with the cost of a home. They're struggling with being able to stay in their home because of homeowners insurance. There's a lot of seniors in this district. I have a plan to help because I've been out there speaking to the district.
And President Trump has thrown his support behind Republican candidate Jim Desmond, the Republican frontrunner. If you were to win this seat, how would you meet the needs of conservative voters who don't vote for you?
It's the same way we meet voters everywhere. I've said, we don't screen who comes to our town halls. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, we invite everyone. And if I get elected and fortunate enough to serve this district, I'm going to continue to do that. I've said, and I believe this fundamentally in my heart of hearts, that I am not going to Washington as a Democratic representative for the California 48th. I'm going as a representative for the 48th. And I will always vote my conscience and vote this district. And that's incredibly important to me. And when we disagree, I'm going to be willing to stand up and take the conversations at the town halls. And when there are ideas that come across from the other side of the aisle, I'm going to listen to them. And we're going to have to work, as we started this conversation, with President Trump for the next 2 years. We're going to have to make sure we get actual solutions to problems because there's too many Americans and too many Californians that are struggling with just surviving daily needs. And that's why I'm running.
And if you don't advance to the November election, do you intend to endorse the Democratic candidate who does?
Oh, of course. I mean, we have to flip this seat. But I want to be clear. Endorsing doesn't mean that people get a free pass. I expect if I'm not the nominee, that whoever the nominee is moves to this district, that they end up actually campaigning in the district, that they do free town halls, that they do listening tours, and they get to know every part of this district. It's incredibly unique. It's a beautiful district. I mean, the Coachella Valley is gorgeous. We have our own set of problems. But you go up to Idlewild, it's an entirely different area. It can be snowing in Idlewild and 100 degrees on the valley floor in Palm Springs. You can have marine layer here in the San Diego area, and it can be 70, 80, 90 degrees in Temecula. You have to learn every part of this district. It's incredibly unique, and whoever the Democratic nominee is, I hope it's me. I think it will be me, but if it's not me, I fully expect them to put in the work to make sure that they represent this entire district.
I've been speaking with Brandon Riker. He's one of the leading Democratic candidates running for California's 48th Congressional District. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, tomorrow we will hear from two other candidates for the 48th District seat, Marnie Von Wilbert and Omar Campanajjar. San Diego County Supervisor Jim Desmond and Kevin O'Neill did not respond to our request for interviews. But as always, you can check out the KPBS Voter Hub to read more about the candidates across all races, and you can find that at kpbs.org/voterhub. That's our show for today. I'm your host, Jade Hindman. Thanks for tuning in to Midday Edition. Be sure to have a great day on purpose, everyone.
Before a producer hits record or before a journalist picks up a pen, someone like you notices something and wants to understand it. Every day, we invite you to keep asking questions like why and who and how. Because NPR begins with questions, not conclusions. And your right to curiosity is a right worth protecting.